program at the Angel Academy of Art follows pretty well the programs of the 19th century art academies. We make a few updates, a few improvements, starting off with works from specially prepared drawings, as you see behind me. We use the best set that was ever made. It was made by Charles Bargue in the 19th century, and so they're called the Bargue drawings. It follows the tried and true method. The student learns how to get the proportions right, using straight lines to keep in control of everything, to keep the rhythms. Then going on to what is called the bedbug line, the shadow line, where the dark part of the cast, in this case, meets the light. And so we progress onto more and more difficult ones, such as the one of Caracalla. Having learned what I like to call the language of drawing, you then pass from the flat into work from the cast, which is in this room. In the cast room, we ask the students to do, first of all, 2 cast drawings using charcoal. Here you see 2 great examples using a 19th century Venus. After doing 2 of these, the student then progresses to working with oil paint, and at first they make what is called a grisaille, that is a study in black and white. Julia is doing this fabulous study of an ear. Now, the main purpose of this is to introduce the student to the layers of painting, how one structures a painting, from the drawing stage to what is called the big color stage, where just the big colors are put in, and then how to model it, and then how to finesse it such that they look similar. Now, as you can see, we use a thing called sight size, which is where the model is set up right alongside the work, be it painting, be it drawing. This way, the student can stand back and can look from one to the other, making a one-to-one comparison, and see where the differences are. In this way, the student learns how to see and how to manipulate the subtleties of the values, as they call the light and dark shifts that create the illusion of form. The student then has to do 2 full color casts. At first you think, well, the cast is just white. But actually, once you start to match the colors, again, the value of sight size, you start to match it, you realize that actually the lights are very pale orange. And as the form turns, as the lights get darker, they get grayer, until finally the shadows themselves are really quite cool. In this case, they're quite green because we have a green wall. This brings the student to the end of the 2nd year. When they come back for the 3rd year, the final year, they start with still life. Now, still life is the best arena in which to study color, texture, and the illusion of space. The student goes through 4 different still lifes, beginning with this tenebrous, that is to say very dark, situation. So the student can then exploit the fact that the more distant objects get darker. They recede into the darkness, whereas the foreground objects come forward in full light. The next 2 still lifes deals with perishables. So the student has to learn certain principles of how to deal with perishable still lifes. Most of the colors have to be roughed in very quickly, and then each perishable has to be focused on in turn to catch it before it dies. Final still life repeats a lot of the previous still lifes, but adds an element, a very decorative, a very busy element in the background. The student now has to learn how to render convincingly that background, but keep it out of focus so that it stays in the back. Now, throughout the whole program, work from the live model continues. Half the student's day is spent working from the live model. In the 4th term, so the beginning of their 2nd year, they start to work with charcoal from the figure, because charcoal is a good segue into oil painting. By the 5th trimester, they start with various oil painting exercises and stages, always with the live model. Drawing of the human figure is much more difficult than drawing a still life. For one thing, the proportions are more demanding. With a still life, if you make a pot a little bit bigger, it doesn't really matter. But from the live model, if you make the shoulders too wide, particularly on an easel-size painting, the scale of an easel-size painting, it looks monstrous. The student's proportions have to be honed very, very, very carefully, very tightly. It's very easy to think, well, if I just copy the model, as I would copy a cast, then I'll have a wonderful painting. And it's just simply not true. You cannot copy the model. The fewer details you put into a figure painting, the more realistic it will look. Most beginners think that, oh, the more details I add, the better it'll look. You know, I'll put in all these little muscles and all these little things, squiggles and whatnot. The more you put in, the less convincing your work will be. And this is a very, very difficult thing to overcome, because through the first 2 years, concentrating on casts, that simplification has already been done for them by the artists who made the original sculpture. So, although they're convincing, they are not realistic. Here we have the first term students working on short poses, working with pencil on paper. The main thrust is to learn correct proportions and good gesture. That is to say, getting a drawing that doesn't look too stiff. This is a step-by-step that shows what is called the grisaille underpainting method, where one goes from gesture to what we call the construct to the map, and then the filling in, the building up of the lights, then the halftones are added and so on, until one comes up with a gray and brown underpainting. Here's an example of how Caravaggio used to work from a very dark canvas, impastoing in the red-orange color of the drapery, and then building up this grisaille, these lights and darks. It's a very efficient way of working. This is the large live model room. And the students are working on this grisaille underpainting with a translucent coloring. After the student has finished the 3 fundamental program, there are in fact 2 postgraduate programs, each lasting 2 years. And one of the several things I'm really proud of with the Angel Academy is that our alumni, our graduates, do so well. We hear all the time about, you know, they're doing this show, they're doing that, so they're winning this prize, they're getting this medal. 90% of them are doing really well. And this, I think I can boast, this is the only school in the world that has such a successful alumni. Without exaggeration, we feel like a big family. We are all very, very, very fond of each other. We have a lot of laughs. And yet, we also teach very seriously. Everybody learns here.